In war, demoralizing the enemy is often such a critical objective that it's sometimes considered even more important than just killing the enemy. In World War I, heavy artillery and gas attacks were incredibly lethal, but the shock of merely witnessing the attack had a terrible effect on the survivors too. The sound was obviously a big part of this, and soldiers came to recognize the presence of certain weapons on the battlefield from their sound alone. In World War II, the Germans fitted Stukas with sirens that made a horrible noise when dive bombing. The sirens increased air drag, resulting in a loss of speed for the plane, which was an acceptable trade-off for the increased intimidation effect. The sound of a diving Stuka with wailing sirens became so iconic that its use in movies has made the sound synonymous with planes in general. The Stuka's bombs were also sometimes fitted with whistles. These did nothing for the lethality of the weapons, they just made them more psychologically impactful for the men under their attack. This tactic has been employed by humans for a long time. Take the ancient sling and its projectiles, known as bullets. Surviving examples show the ancient Greeks and Romans often inscribed messages on sling bullets, like "take this" or "catch," but there have also been sling bullets discovered with holes bored into them, so they made a more pronounced whooshing sound through the air. Sling bullets were so small and travelled so quickly that you likely wouldn't even see many of them passing by your head, but the holes made sure you heard them. But those are all examples of weapons that were already pretty scary, because they could kill you. And for the enemy to see or hear how scary your weapons are, well, he sort of already has to be there fighting you with weapons of his own. What you really want is to horrify him before he ever reaches the battlefield. You want to defeat your enemy before you even meet him. You want him to live in a world of horror from which the only escape is surrender. The prime example of this throughout all human history is the mutilation of bodies. Dismember them, skin them, impale them on stakes, carve messages into their flesh. This is what happened to the last people who marched on us, and we can't wait to do it to you. After the Romans crushed Spartacus and his slave rebellion, they lined the road to Rome with over 6,000 crucified captives, stretching over 100 miles. Vlad the Impaler left forests of staked victims in his wake. The message was clear: no matter how many men you send against us, we have the means to torture every last one of them to death. Today, this is a war crime, so professional armies have to find more creative ways to immerse their enemies in horror. In the 1950s, the CIA was trying to undermine communist rebels in the Philippines, pretty standard fare for the CIA, and one method they used involved manipulating local culture against the rebels. In Filipino folklore, the aswang is an evil creature similar to a ghoul or vampire, and the CIA attempted to spread rumors among the populace that aswangs were attacking wicked men. They supplemented these rumors by puncturing holes in dead rebels, draining them of their blood, and leaving them to be discovered. Still technically mutilation of a corpse, I suppose, but international law wasn't as clear on that in the 1950s. And the CIA is one of those organizations that kinda has to be explicitly told, elsewise they'll just do whatever they want. Actually, they have a tendency to do that anyway. The mastermind behind that plot was a CIA operative who used to be an executive in advertising. See, the CIA recognized that some of the most advanced psychological manipulation known to man was developed by the American marketing industry. In 2005, they enlisted the help of a former Hasbro executive, Donald Levine, for a secret psychological warfare program known as Devil Eyes. Donald Levine is often credited as the father of G.I. Joe toys. So what did the CIA want with him? Well, they wanted him to make toys. The CIA had Levine make 12-inch action figures, much like G.I. Joes, but for children in Afghanistan and Pakistan, leading to the creation of the Osama bin Laden action figure. Yes, the CIA made action figures of Osama bin Laden. The project was called Devil Eyes because the dolls' faces were painted with a material that, when exposed to heat, would reveal a terrifying demonic image underneath. This was to scare children and parents into dropping their support for bin Laden. The CIA claimed the project was cancelled after the production of just 3 prototypes, although contradictory reports have claimed hundreds of the dolls did indeed make their way to Pakistan. Another strange psychological warfare effort by US forces was Operation Wandering Soul, which was undertaken during the Vietnam War. The Americans tried to undermine the Viet Cong's will to fight by manipulating their traditions and beliefs. See, the Americans had noticed that many Vietnamese were of the belief that if someone did not receive the proper burial rites, their soul would be cursed to aimlessly wander in eternal suffering. And so the US created many audio recordings intended to mimic the cries of these lost souls. Infantrymen and helicopters would play the recordings in the jungles at night, in which a voice claiming to be a fallen Viet Cong soldier would warn his comrades of his horrible fate, having been left to rot on the battlefield. At least one of these recordings, known as Ghost Tape Number 10, survives today.
Các bạn của tôi trở về để nói cho các bạn biết rằng tôi đã chết. Địa ngục, cái chết thật là oan uổng, thật là vô nghĩa, nhưng lúc tôi biết thì đã quá muộn rồi. Các bạn ơi, các bạn còn sống, còn có ngày các bạn gặp được người thân yêu của các bạn. Các bạn không biết tôi nói nào. Trở về các bạn muốn mau đi, dứt khoát mau đi, lừa bỏ đi các bạn. Nếu không thể tránh được cái sự cảm thương như tôi. Trở về đi các bạn ơi, nếu không thì quá muộn rồi.
The Americans had to be careful not to play these recordings within earshot of their South Vietnamese allies, who would also be disturbed by the idea that they could be killed in battle without proper burial. The effectiveness of Operation Wandering Soul is debatable. The Viet Cong quickly figured out what the Americans were doing and would open fire in the direction of the loudspeakers. Of course, this did give their positions away, so maybe that's still a win. You'd have to imagine that with the technology of that era, it was probably pretty obvious the sounds were coming from speakers and not from ghosts. If you've ever heard a bullhorn from far away, you'll know what I'm talking about. The sound is obviously altered. It's not clear. Today, militaries use long-range acoustic devices to project sound. They can be incredibly loud and can be heard from miles away, supposedly with a level of clarity very distinct from that of common speaker systems. This has led to rumors of a so-called voice of God device, the sound of which is supposedly so clear over such long distances that targets can be led to believe God himself has spoken out of the blue. Some say the voice of God weapon makes it sound like the voice is coming from inside your own head. Some say it can be directed so precisely that an individual in a crowd can receive a message no one else can hear. And some claim the voice of God has been used by American troops against insurgents to stunning effect. These are just rumors, but if such a device does truly exist, you could imagine it being paired with elaborate drone displays to make it seem like a figure from the sky really is talking to you. So you tell me, which of these methods, if any, would have convinced you to lay down your arms and say, fuck this, I'm going home? Humans can be fairly willful and relentless creatures, even in the face of certain doom, and oftentimes inflicting horror on soldiers only serves to inspire them to be even more brutal. So maybe some of these methods just gave you ideas. For more ideas, you can watch more of my videos, and you can subscribe to see new ones as I release them in the future. If you like the idea that I would be paid for all this, then you can join the channel membership to support me monetarily. You even get little badges beside your name to wage psychological warfare on all the non-paying commenters. Thank you, and until next time, stay safe. We have the means to torture every I went through the whole thing and fucked up on like the last couple of words. God damn it. Today, this is a war crime, so professional armies have to find more... Goddamn chair. And the CIA attempted to spread rumours among the fucking goddamn it. At least one of these recordings, known as tape number... What are you doing? Lord. At least one of these recordings, known as Ghost Tape number 10, survived today. What are you saying? What are you saying? Today, militaries use long-range acoustic devices to produce... For God's sake.